All right, we are back here on the podcast. You guys heard the epic trailer for the Snyder Cut, the 4.5, 4 hour, 6 minute cut of Justice League, originally intended by Zack Snyder, now on HBO Max. I have watched it after I saw social media go on fire. Also joined by somebody else who's watched it. And you know him from the Sky Guys. We've done a little bit of Marvel. Now we're going into DC with Nick Fraietta here. Nick, how are you?
Doing good. Very excited to be on about this. Wasn't expecting to get the call about this at all, but I'm a big DC fan, so I'm definitely excited to jump into this.
Now, I know when this came out last year, the word that Snyder was going to do this because everybody knows the backstory. If you have not, he was the guy behind the DC sort of extended universe, the counter to Marvel. He does the Man of Steel. He does Batman v Superman, sets up Justice League. He starts working the project, ends up leading for a personal matter. DC brings in Joss Whedon to finish it. Movie does not go as planned. He says, hey, I had a vision that was better. Last year during the pandemic, HBO Max says, okay, Zack Snyder, here's some money. Finish up your cut. We'll put it on the service. So when the news of this came out, what did you think?
I didn't see the original, which is, I think, a main reason that I'm here today is because, well, I have now, but when this was announced and up until tonight, as of recording, I did not watch the original Justice League. So for me, it was like, here we go again, DC trying to cover their tracks or trying to hide what was wrong with it. Because I actually heard recently, I heard this today or yesterday. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is it David Ayer? Ayer?
I think it's Ire.
Ayer, he did the Suicide Squad. He's saying the same thing. He's like, I have a better movie too. Let me release mine. And I feel like this is going to be a trend now of people saying it wasn't my fault that it was bad. It was it was the suits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was DC's fault, not my fault.
Right. It was Warner Brothers. It was DC. It was whatever. But overall, that was my reaction. Was they're going to try to cover their tracks with something here. Just admit you didn't do a good job. But I didn't see it, so it was hard for me to say like it was bad or it was good because I didn't see it. But that's how I felt, is you're trying to cover your tracks.
So you said you were a big DC guy. So why did you not see Justice League when it came out back a couple of years ago?
Well, I hated the build up to it. I saw Man of Steel. I liked it. It was good. I saw it like opening weekend or whatever it was, and I saw Batman vs Superman, and I fell asleep like 3 times in the theater. I really did. I was very tired from work, but that's that wasn't because the movie was not entertaining. I actually fell asleep 3 times in the movie, and I was like, I don't understand the movie. It was so dark, and then Suicide Squad was just awful. So I was just like, I don't know what they're doing. They're just throwing this thing down a hole. This whole thing was just ruined, and I hated it. So I was just like, I have no interest in this universe. And I mentioned to you before, I really like the DC television universe with Flash and Arrow and all those shows. And Arrow is over, and I just didn't like the way they casted Flash. And I was like, I don't like the way they're doing this stuff. I like the TV version better. And it's just a lot of just things that I didn't agree with, so I just didn't want to see it. I had zero interest in seeing it.
Okay, so 2 follow-up questions. Number 1, you never saw the original Wonder Woman?
Still haven't seen that one.
To my opinion, that's still the best Wonder Woman, the best DC movie has come out to that point. Is Wonder Woman 1, in my opinion.
I haven't seen that one yet. I have watched, as I mentioned, those 3, and then now I've seen the Snyder Cut and the other original Justice League as well.
And number 2, you were not inspired by the fact that Superman and Batman bonded the fact that the mothers are both named Martha?
That didn't get me. I remember sitting there saying, I don't understand. What was at first, it didn't click with me. I was like, what? Well, why did Martha work? And whoever I saw it with, like, because they're moms. I'm like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that movie was. I think that movie was. I don't like it. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it was as bad as the ratings were. I don't think it was good by any means, but I don't think it was as bad as the ratings says it was.
I think the problem was there was so much hype with that, and then you deliver that product, it automatically just sours a lot of people on what's going to come.
Right. Yeah, and I will say, before we get into it, that movie especially, and then this movie too, Ben Affleck, not a bad Batman at all. I don't mind him as Batman whatsoever. When it was announced, I was like, Ben Affleck? But he did good.
Yeah, Ben Affleck's a solid Batman. I don't think he gets the amount of praise he should for the way he acts in the role. I think part of it is the writing does not do him justice most of the time. But I also want to admit, too, I saw the runtime. I said it's 4 hours. At first, I was like, oh God, somebody needs to tell Zack Snyder this thing called editing, where you actually cut the film down and don't just put every single idea you have to pen to paper. But did the 4-hour runtime bother you when you watch this?
It did a little bit. A little bit. I knew I wasn't gonna make it in one sitting. I did it in two. I did an hour and 40 minutes or so the first time, and then I just finished it up the second. Like it was the same day that I had done it. I just took a break during the day, but it bothered me a little bit. It was too long. It's not meant for one sitting, I guess. But the good thing is, it is separated by those parts, so you could put it down for a little bit if you wanted to, at a certain spot, and not feel like you're pausing in the middle of a scene. And also, after watching the original one tonight, it's it needed to be that long.
Yeah,
It could have done a two movie thing like how they did with the. Not a big Harry Potter fan. Help me out here. What are the name of the last two?
it was a Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah, they could have done something like that. They could have, they could have also, which I think they should have done, is released the Flash movie and the Aquaman movie a couple of years before, but they didn't. So this is what they needed to do.
Yeah, let's not waste any more time here with the non-spoiler talk. I'll give you the spoiler warning here. Okay, if you have not watched the 4-hour, 6-minute Snyder cut yet, and you care about being spoiled, stop. Come back in about 3 days after you watch the full movie. Come back and we'll fill you in what's going on here. But I'd say I agree with you on the runtime. I think the problem is that there's a lot of good stuff here. I think there's a 3-hour cut to be made of this, where this is a 3-hour solid movie that is very good. I think 4 hours was pushing it a little too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think about it simply like this: the scene with Barry Allen and Iris at the way beginning was at the pet shop. That was like a 15-minute scene. That could have been 3.
Yeah.
They just, I did read that somewhere. I read somewhere that 10% of the film was shot in slow motion. The Snyder Cut, that is.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. You get rid of that, it's 10% of your film already.
Yeah, that's pretty. That is a lot, and I mean, I think the biggest problem you said is that obviously, I mean, we got a lot more backstory on the people we hadn't had films on yet, which was Aquaman, Cyborg, especially gets a huge chunk more backstory than gets in the original Justice League cut, and the Flash. And I think, to your point, I think it's the problem the way DC was building, because they saw that Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron each made over $1 billion. Like, ooh, we put all our guys in one film, we're gonna make a boatload of money. And then they didn't do the work. When all of a sudden, like in original Avengers, you've seen 5 of the 6, and Hawkeye's the only guy you haven't shown up yet. And all of a sudden, he's just tied to the bad guy of the whole movie, so it's not a big deal. But here you've seen the Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg ran until about like 2 minutes total. So you have to explain all 3 of them. That's a lot of wasted inventory in your film.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what drew it down. I don't think I watched, as I mentioned several times already, I watched the original tonight. I don't think it was a bad movie at all. I think it was fine, but they had spent too much time explaining these characters, and they didn't have the time for it. And I noticed that, I don't know if you noticed this, the original cut of Justice League, the 2017 version, is literally exactly 2 hours to the second. And
Yeah.
that was, and I knew that there was like a mandate from DC, from Warner Brothers, to get it under 2 hours. It was literally, including credits, 2 hours, 0 minutes and 0 seconds, like exactly. And that's clearly just cutting stuff down to fit the time frame.
Yeah, I think the biggest victim is Cyborg, because Cyborg is, I don't know if you agree, I think Cyborg's the main character of the Snyder Cut. I feel like this is his movie. I mean, we get his entire backstory. He's sort of the one leading the charge for most of this. I think Cyborg is the MVP of the movie to me, because I mean, he's such a good
I don't disagree.
I mean, Ray Fisher kills it in there. I think the Cyborg movie, which I want now, which we're not going to get because of behind the scenes stuff going on at DC, where Ray Fisher has said he's never going to work there with anybody again other than Zack Snyder. And Snyder apparently persona non grata at DC. But I think this whole thing is just so unfortunate, because we could have had a good Cyborg movie, and instead we had Cyborg basically reduced to like computer prop in the Joss Whedon cut.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would agree that he is the MVP. And I mentioned earlier how I wasn't happy about how they casted Flash. I got to say, I was very surprised. I was very happy with the way he was portrayed. I think Ezra Miller did a really good job, and I'm excited to see I don't know if it's next year or the year after, whenever that Flash movie's coming out. I'm definitely gonna watch that.
Yeah, that Flash movie is coming out. I think in late 2022, I believe it is. And I feel like that's gonna sort of be where, and I know all the comic fans I know are aware that the Flash is also has a big event called Flashpoint where he sort of messes with time and the space time continuum to a degree. I think we're
Yeah,
gonna.
he ruins everything. If you
He does.
watch the Flash TV show, he literally ruins everything at the end of every season, every time.
Yeah, so they're gonna do this in the movies. They're gonna basically retcon it out. So Ben Affleck's no longer Batman. They're gonna end up changing that and changing a bunch of other things to sort of basically use this as a reboot for the DC universe. I feel like that's where we're going with Flash.
Yeah, I like it and I dislike it at the same time. I like it because it makes the story make sense, but at the same time, it's like a cop out that Flash can just do whatever and it just works because it's Flash. And it's like, oh, how do you explain it? Well, he went back in time. It's kind of like a cop out, but that's how the Flash's character's been for as long as I've known it. So I'm just really excited to see that because I mentioned before I really like that show, and I'm really excited to see how they go with it. Like how his dad's in jail, and I don't know if you know the backstory, but like his dad killed his mom. He really didn't. It was no one believed him as he's a little kid, and like it's a really interesting story, and the TV show goes into it really well. But it's a nice, really nice character. The Flash is really cool.
Yeah, I think the Flash also has a great moment in this movie, especially because we see more of the time travel stuff with him a little bit, where we see the scenario where for a brief second where the bad guys win and the mother boxes merge, and then life is getting wiped out, and then Barry Allen has to basically go back in time and undo it. And you see I think it's probably the best use of slow mo in the whole film was that sequence.
Yeah, he doesn't get that in the original. He gets that one little scene where he runs and he has to touch the mother box as soon as it hits to bring Superman back.
Yeah.
That's his only. That's really his only moment in the original. Is that, and it's just he has some funny moments, like he's a little comedic relief, sure, but that's his only moment in the movie, and it's like what 10 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, that and like they had the running joke of him and trying to figure out who Flash faster between him and Superman. That's the other big thing from the original movie.
Yeah, and they have the mid credit scene of them trying to race, which is cool. They do the same, if I remember correctly. Superman is in the Arrowverse. I don't know who plays him in that, but the guy's good. Whoever plays him, they do the same with the Flash and him. So
I think it's Tyler Hoechlin, I think, plays him or something like that.
and he just got his own show too, Superman and Lois. It's called.
Yeah, so like I think the interesting thing here also, I think that the other thing that that Snyder gets right here, I think with the benefit of time, is that the CGI in this movie, which has never strengthened DC, much better here. Steppenwolf gets a major upgrade in terms of as the bad guy because he looks more menacing than he does in the first one, where he basically looks like a very weird blue blob of goo.
Yeah, he looks like I don't even know how to explain what he looks like in the original, but he looks much better. And I think the biggest I don't know if I like this or not. I can't decide, but I know the internet is sold on it, that they love it. How do you feel about the inclusion of Darkseid?
I think it makes much more sense for the purpose of the story because it's sort of like it's a parallel to the original Avengers dynamic where Loki was the bad guy, but he was working for Thanos the whole time, where it kind of doesn't make sense that like Steppenwolf is doing this on his own and Dark's having him be and people in the comics, the Steppenwolf sort of answers to other people is not really the big bad. I think having Darkseid here is sort of loom as a bigger threat to what Snyder is playing for the whole DCEU. I think that makes much more sense.
Yeah, he mentions Darkseid in the original cut that I watched tonight, but only once. And I think there could have been a middle ground there that would have been better where he brings him up. Maybe he's in the background for a scene or something like that, but he's not there. So there's there's that fear of the bigger bad being out there kind of thing, but he's not necessarily thrown right at you. Because I don't know. I mean, they could go with how many more Justice League movies if with the success on this one, I think they can create a whole they already have created the universe, but I think they can create, at least one or two sequels to this Justice League movie. So I think that'd be really cool if you have the big bad be Darkseid, and I think that's their plan. So I just don't know what there's a lot of like back and forth, I guess, with Snyder and DC and whether or not he's gonna get the whole universe and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Apparently, the environment there has been pretty toxic. I mean, Ray Fisher doesn't want to work there anymore. They're trying to recast Henry Cavill again. Affleck wants out. So I mean, apart from like Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa, it doesn't feel like I think 3 of the 6 are basically going to be replaced at some point. So it's not a good long term setup here for that.
I just gotta throw this in there. I don't think he really did that much in the movie, but honestly, in either cut, I don't think they used him enough. But Jason Momoa is the man.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. He is the coolest guy. He plays the character so well. He's not really. I feel like he doesn't have as big a role as I wish, but he's awesome. And honestly, I never saw the Aquaman movie, and that's next. That was maybe I should watch Wonder Woman first. I don't know, but those are my next two. Whatever order they come in, I'm gonna watch those two.
Yeah, Aquaman was enjoyable. I originally not avoid it in theaters. I was so turned off by Justice League, but that movie's a lot of fun, and that's something you don't really get with a lot of these DC movies. Like Aquaman is fun, and another one that's not really tied in yet to the bigger whole Justice League picture, but Shazam is also underrated.
Yeah, I want to see. I'm gonna watch Shazam definitely as well. But correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Aquaman, being like Jason Momoa, the kind of humor that he brings, it kind of reminds me of Thor.
Yeah, it's very similar.
You see, okay, so you do see that. I mean, I didn't see the movie, so I'm excited to see how that works out. But it seems very similar to Thor.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic with Aquaman, who again is probably the least involved in both cuts. Once Cyborg gets the upgrade here, but I think also I like that they did more fan service here. I mean, we learned that Martian Manhunter apparently has been in the universe the whole time. We learned that he was a character who's appeared in a couple of the Batman, Superman movies, and now we learned that he's actually Martian Manhunter. We get him in the post credits, but I think that was a good little bit of fan service throw in there.
Yeah, and it sets up more for the future, which is great. I mean, I think that's something they were lacking is something, but excuse me, with DC lately has been like, is this in the universe? Is this in the universe? We don't even know. Like Joker movie came out last year and it was a great movie, but it has nothing to do with this. And then the new Batman movie is coming out with Pattinson. Is that the same universe? Is that going to be Flashpoint? We don't even like. It's just these movies are coming out of left field, and people are like, "What's this movie?" Like, we still have Black Adam to come. How's that going to play in? We have no idea. Like the Birds of Prey movie, like all this stuff with like Harley Quinn and stuff. Where was she? And this is the Justice League bringing everyone together. Why was she not even mentioned? Like, there's a lot more to come. You know, you see at the end, you see Lex Luthor and Slade Wilson, so that's cool. Like seeing them together, but like, when is this all going to come together? And you know, I want to say, oh, it's still early, give them time, but like, it's been 8 years since they came out with their first movie. Like 8 years into the MCU, we were at Civil War already.
Yeah.
So,
And you still don't even have a movie for the Flash. It's 8 years into this.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
And I have to throw this in there too. I think Lex Luthor's casting is the worst thing in the entire universe.
That broke also Batman v Superman because Jesse.
I don't mind the actor. He just doesn't. He doesn't fit as Lex Luthor.
No, he should have been like, if you want to use as a villain, fine. Do him as something else. I feel like he would have been much more fun as the Riddler.
Yeah, and he fits as like a prequel Lex Luthor, maybe like Lex Luthor 20 years before the events, maybe. But you're looking at a Batman here, like this Ben Affleck Batman is like a 20-year veteran Batman. So this is not the prequel time. If this took place like
he was in Pattinson's movie, maybe.
Yeah, if this took place then, maybe, sure. Or like, with a young Superman or something like that before Barry Allen's even a thought, like that kind of stuff, that would work. That'd be fine. But it doesn't work as like the veteran Batman with the Justice League. It doesn't work there. I keep saying Batman. I know he's a Superman villain, but I could just use that easier because Batman's age easier to track than Superman.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that was one of the big problems with that Batman v Superman is that miscasting Jesse Eisenberg ruined Lex Luthor, and that sort of took the whole movie down a peg. I think that movie sort of where I think the whole thing sort of spirals because that movie's bad. It's 2.5 hours long. DC panics and says, we can't do this again. We have to get that Justice League under 2 hours. So when Snyder step away, Joss Whedon comes in. He gets told, hey, tell the story in 2 hours. You have to be out of here 2 hours on the dot. And he makes his own Joss Whedon changes. We've seen some of them in the movie. I mean, we haven't talked about many of them yet, but we get like some of the tone is just so mishmash between what Joss Whedon does and what was originally filmed for the Snyder Cut. And we saw like Snyder basically said that they filmed one scene with Cyborg actually made the Justice League cut where there was a scene when they're all on the rooftop with Commissioner Gordon. And that's when Cyborg first shows up. Apart from that, it's all brand new stuff for Cyborg. I think the tones being so off, they also killed that original Justice League.
It was very, very different. There's no other way to put it. Watching them both, I really feel like I watched two different movies and
Yeah.
that's weird because it's the same movie.
Yeah. Is these
And
yeah.
yeah, it's the same movie, but it's a different movie.
Yeah, because Joss Whedon puts his Whedon touch. He tries to throw the humor in there. I mean, you can tell exactly what he put in there because he tried to be like more direct with some things. Like the very first scene of the original Justice League cut is Batman chasing one of the aliens and basically looking for the guys like, I smell fear. Like that gets cut immediately from the Snyder cut. We have the scene of like Aquaman sitting on the lasso of truth is also cut because it's just Whedon trying to add humor in there, and all the stuff with the Flash and Superman trying to figure out who's faster. All that stuff gets cut. Like you can see all the Whedon humor gets got thrown out.
Yeah, DC has its tone, Marvel has its tone, and they tried to use Marvel's tone in DC, and that's not how DC works, and that's why the Snyder Cut works because it sticks to its tone.
It's consistent the whole way through. I mean,
right. It understands what DC's about, and it's how it worked out. 15 years ago, it had nothing to do with Marvel or DC being the dark or the light or the humor or the non-humor, but now it is. Marvel is the light, humorous one. DC is the dark,
serious one.
serious one. That's how it works. It's no one's fault. That's just how it is.
I think it is how it is, and I think for you watching the second one, like, was it like how jarring was it to sit there and just like watch it? You only had 2 hours in, but seeing like scenes that you had seen already, saying, you know what, like this is just not how it should be.
It was an easier watch, I'll say. Obviously, the 2 hours. It was an easier watch, though, being that personally, and most people completely disagree with me, I'm not a Zack Snyder fan at all. I do not like his movies. I don't at all. I hate the way you know more about film than I do, his lens that he uses to make everything look the way it does. I hate it. 300 is one of my least favorite movies because I can't see anything. I feel like I can't see anything. I hated the aspect ratio in the
Snyder Cut.
Yep, the 4:3. It just made me think, why isn't it stretched the whole time? Why isn't it not stretched, but you know what I mean? Why isn't it in a widescreen mode? I don't agree with the way he does things personally, but it doesn't mean it wasn't better, and it was better, which makes me think if they had mixed like two things together, like if he didn't use his lens and he stretched the screen out a little bit, I would have thought it was one of the greatest movies I ever saw. But the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like, why won't he just do this? Why does he have to do this? Why does 300 need to be like, I have to do this the whole time I watch it and squint because I can't see what's going on?
Yeah, that's the worst thing of the Snyder effect on the DC is that it feels like every final battle is like in the dark with really bad CGI. That's something I do think that's a major problem that they picked up from Snyder.
So one more time, what was the name of that he uses a lens?
It's like I forget. It's like that flare-ish effect. Also, it's like
I can't stand it. You know exactly what I'm talking about when you see 300, right?
Yeah,
300 is like the best example of it.
Yeah, he loves the slow-mo. He loves the CGI in the dark, so you can just throw as much stuff on the wall as he can. Hope no one notices that doesn't all look great. So give you these giant masses of aliens or soldiers or whatever you want there. I think if you did though, get this cut down to 3 hours. You had told the stories of Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman before you got to this movie, and you trimmed down some of these battles. Like you said, the 15-minute scene of Barry Allen and Iris. Do that in 3 minutes. You make enough cuts here, I think you have a coherent 3 hour, very interesting movie.
Yeah, I think it was very well done. I think it was very like the story and whatnot. They one thing I definitely noticed, like the one thing watching both cuts that I noticed like the most was the mother. What are they called? The mother boxes. They talked about them once in the original movie, like as if we were supposed to just know what it is. She explains it to Batman. Wonder Woman explains it to him for like a second, and then we don't hear anything else about what they do. It's just like gone. And we're just like, we see this family in the middle of Russia, and we're supposed to just to know what that is. Like, it's not really explained well enough, and I feel like they explain everything in much more detail in the Snyder Cut, which makes sense why it's double the length.
Yeah, and the Russian family, another Joss Whedon edition that got the axe in the Snyder Cut. That was no sight of them whatsoever.
Yep, none. And it's interesting that there was something that came out for the Snyder Cut, and it still was twice the length.
Yeah, that's incredible. I also think the thing that also passes out is the epilogue, which I think a lot of that was new footage that they filmed because they were sort of expanding. We had the whole dream sequence with Batman's like more of his dream from the Batman v Superman. I mean, the original Joss Whedon cut ends with the scene of Superman in the city, basically like getting ready to fly off and fight somebody. Here we get another like 15 minutes of this whole extended montage. We learn what the plans sort of were for the sequel. We see the dream where basically Superman has gone insane and been corrupted by Darkseid because Lois Lane is dead. He's killed Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and then we have a really interesting like mod squad of Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Mara from Aquaman's world, and then Slade Wilson and Joker. Like, does that universe interest you at all?
It confuses me more than anything, honestly.
Yeah.
There was too much going on. I was sitting there just like trying to listen to what the Joker was saying, and I'm more or less just like confused.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. So does it really interest me? No. I'd rather see these heroes move forward. See, we both disagree with the casting choice for Lex Luthor, but he is the guy who plays him. So I want to see our heroes and him and Slade Wilson move forward and see what they have planned. And Darkseid, obviously. See, that's what I'm interested in, seeing that, and then seeing how they can have the Flash run and recast everybody.
Yeah. I think though the recast is something you can easily do. I mean, even without Flash shenanigans. I mean, Marvel turned Ed Norton into Mark Ruffalo, and it worked out a lot better. They turned Terrence Howard into Don Cheadle. I mean, there's no reason they can't turn Jesse Eisenberg into a more like established Lex Luthor.
The only thing they had going for them in those was they each had one film, and then they were out.
Yeah.
With him, Jesse Eisenberg is not that big of a deal. He only had two.
He's like one and maybe a scene in the second one.
Yeah, so was he even in Suicide Squad? I don't think he was.
No, he's in the post credits of the Justice League.
So he's not in Suicide Squad at all, right?
No, he's not.
Okay, so he's in one movie and then a scene. So it could happen with him, but when it comes to like Affleck and it comes to Superman, like that's going to be tough.
Yeah, because those are
going to be tough.
Those are main level like characters.
Yeah, no one was recasting Chris Evans.
No, I think
so. It's going to be tough for them to do that. But again, with the Flash, it's possible.
Yeah. So my question also to you is like, after seeing the Snyder Cut as a DC guy, would you have liked to see where Snyder takes this? Because it's not going to happen based on this world we're in right now. But what do you like? If you thought, would you be happy if they said all of a sudden, like, okay, Zack Snyder's back in charge of the DC universe and he's going to sort of carry out his vision going forward? The Snyder Cut is new canon, and Justice League is sort of non-existent.
Yeah, I would want to see that just because. I mean, besides the length, which we've talked about before, obviously, it's a better movie. It brings more detail to the characters, shows more about them, and honestly, if they just like let him produce everything, maybe he doesn't have the director, then just let him produce every film and keep it with one cohesive story, it would be a better universe. It's literally what Marvel does. I don't see why anyone would go against that model. Like, how do you possibly have an overwhelming universe with with one majority story and possibly have different visions in there? Like, for example, the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. Like, how did that possibly happen? How do you possibly have different directors going in different playing tug of war? Like, get everyone on the same page. You have a plan from the get-go. That's how you have to create these things.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think at least you can see what happens here. I think the Suicide Squad is a good litmus test because they had James Gunn come in. They basically they're unofficially rebooting Suicide Squad with some new characters, some of the holdovers. They're basically pretending the first one didn't happen. And seeing James Gunn with this character will be fun. I think that's going to be the next big test for DC movies, see what that ends up looking like.
That's going to be interesting, that one, because you don't have Will Smith in there, who, to be honest with you, I'm not the biggest Will Smith fan. I used to be. I like a young Will Smith. A Fresh Prince Will Smith up till even I Am Legend Will Smith. And then after that, I don't know. That movie with his son, After Earth. Did you see that one?
I did not.
I mean, that was one of the worst movies I ever saw. But not for Will Smith, but interesting because you had Stallone in that movie and John Cena. It's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be pretty fun to see, and that comes out, I believe, this summer.
Yeah, it comes out in August.
Yeah, and James Gunn. I mean, should be good. I don't know. From what I've seen from James Gunn, everything's been. I haven't seen everything he's done, but I've seen. Seems good. He did Guardians 1, I believe, and 2, right?
Yeah, he's gonna do 3 after he's done with this.
Okay, so I love those movies. So see what he could do with it. And it seems like a similar kind of story, like the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of seemed like a Suicide Squad in a way.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. And
Yeah, like their beginnings from like the first Guardians movie was literally in a prison, you know. So it wouldn't the Suicide Squad it kind of matches up a little bit.
yeah, it kind of does. And that's all we're doing the Snyder Cut today. But we're going to be back later this week. We're joined by Pete Considori. The Sky Guys are coming back for season number 3 coverage. And I think you and I have talked off air about this, but I've got some hot takes. I feel like the Star Wars fan might come for me on some of these things.
Yeah, I have told you this off the air, but I feel like when we get to the season 3 later on, when we do that conversation with Pete, I feel like it's almost like you're not going to be the host that time. You're going to be the one giving the analysis on there because you have a lot to share, and so do I. I feel like they could have switched things around a little bit and made it much better, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, and I'm going to put this in here as a little tease for you guys to encourage you, especially those of you who've seen Clone Wars in season 3. I'm going to put the spoiler up one more time here. So I'm not a big fan of the Mortis arc. I know it's one of the most beloved in the history of the show, but I have issues with it. So I'm going to air those on that podcast.
That's what I'm excited to hear the most out of it from you. So if you don't mind, when we get to that part, I'll be asking you. So Mike, how did you feel about it instead of you asking me?
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I have some stuff down because I have issues specifically with the characters, some of the characters in that arc, not the main 3, the new 3. Those are the ones I have the issues with.
I'm excited to talk about it as I always am, and I'm most excited though. I know we'll get there next week. I don't want to talk Star Wars, and I know we're gonna cut this segment to an end here, but I'm really excited because I think seasons 1, 2, and 3 are like your intro seasons to Clone Wars, and 4 and 5 are just top tier seasons, and I'm really excited to get into those.
All right, Nick. Thanks again for all time. I really appreciate it.
Yep, I will be back, and thanks for having me on.